apparently I got no introduction joke, so let's get on with the program. Nunchuck Man!
So for Nunchuck Man, I tried to make him, in this movie, I tried to make him as close to his high school counterpart as possible. Incompetent, way too overconfident for his own good, and evidently gets the shit kicked out of him when he clearly underestimates his opponent.
Ha! Now I got the gun! Please, I think 50. Hiya! Ah, fingers!
Originally in the Project Apocalypse, the high school version, it was originally going to be reversed. Like, Mihoshi would have survived at the end, and Nunchuck Man would have died at the end. And of course, Killer Sai would have died as well, because Killer Sai would have resurrected much earlier, and he and Nunchuck Man would have fought, and they both would have, like, literally killed each other at the same time. Kind of like Superman and Doomsday. You know, Mihoshi would have defeated Mass Nightmare, and Mihoshi decides he would, like, stop working for the government and, like, basically take over for Nunchuck Man, which would have started off a whole different series called Nunchuck Man Chronicles, which, I gotta be honest, kind of sucked. So I'm kind of glad that goose was killed off, and I decided to go with this instead. So instead, I had Nunchuck Man, like, get training and shit, become better, and take his duties more seriously and shit. And of course, we move on to Return of Nunchuck Man, where he gets post-traumatic amnesia after, spoiler alert, Mihoshi gets killed by Killer Sai. Well, in all fairness, if you're watching this, you probably knew that already, but, so at that point, Nunchuck Man had post-traumatic amnesia, and at that point, he doesn't remember shit, and he's basically just a guy who works in the dish pit in the kitchen, and hangs out with his fucking karate homeboy, Dante, and they fucking hang out, do shit, and do martial arts and whatever, and...
Well, this lack of sleep is not very good for you. You missed out on the tournament last month.
Yeah, I know, it sucks. I really wanted to enter that year, too.
Then eventually, Nunchuck Man regains his memory back after, you know, Detective Jivama was like, "Here, motherfucker, reality check." And at that point, Nunchuck Man is definitely like he takes his duties a lot more seriously. He's a bit more level-headed and not as lax as he once was. Like, basically, and where the inspiration came from for that is basically Terry Bogard from the King of Fighters games, Fatal Fury, even part of his personality from the Fatal Fury movie. That's where I got most of that inspiration from. And of course, for his fighting style, that ultimately, of course, comes from Bruce Lee. But I tried to base that off of, like, martial law from Tekken, who, of course, he himself is an inspiration of Bruce Lee. So it's an inspiration within an inspiration, so.
All right, you forced me to go all out. Hope you're ready for this.
Dominic has been with me from the very beginning. Like, he was Killer Sai and Mihoshi, and that's all he played. And that's all he knew how to do. Dominic, yeah, he's like because so naturally I had to pick Dominic to replay Mihoshi. So because there's nobody else, quite frankly, because he's got that distinct delivery that only he can pull off, which is basically the equivalent of an English dub in a Japanese fighting game.
He was basically inspired from a lot of video game characters, especially ninja characters from previous anime series and all the other, like Mortal Kombat, Sub-Zero, and let's see. I forgot what was the other ninja's name in Virtua Fighter. I forgot was Kage from Virtua Fighter and Ryu Hayabusa from Dead or Alive games.
Mihoshi is the blue dragon, and Mihoshi's costume is literally just originally a t-shirt that we tied up into a ninja hood and whatever he was wearing. And when I was doing this movie, I was like, you know what? I think it's about time I gave Mihoshi a respectable costume. So that's where Sub-Zero's costume and the Tabai boots and the mask come in. And it was like, yeah, it was definitely about time Mihoshi had a respectable fucking outfit. And Dominic has great acrobatics. Like, he could do flips and shit. It is absolutely fucking bananas, and it's always a fucking pleasure to see, like, with my own eyes. And it's just like, dude, I don't know how he's not in, like, the official, like, gymnastics competition, because I bet he could fucking clean house there, or at the very least be in the top 10.
I thought it was great working with Dom, just watching the acrobatic abilities that he put forth. I did not see that coming.
Sometimes, like, when I get off of work, I come home and then, you know, I just get my, come home and relax and start, you know, I'm a YouTuber and sometimes I like to game a lot, and then, you know, I like to play video games. I have like a special footage equipment that I like using in order to record my games and, you know, make sure they're, you know, they're in high quality. That's kind of my hobby. For the record, YouTube is a hobby, not a job. So for those who are watching this, don't make it as a job. Make it as a hobby. Once I head over to my friend's apartment, once I head over there, it's time to get down to business, like, for real. And, you know, we have to, and like I said, we have to get in, like, costume and make sure that we have everything all in set, and make sure that we have everything in our costumes correctly, and, you know, making sure that we're not missing anything that's in the film, and make sure that we get our lines correctly so that way we don't mess them up. So.
Save the speech. You know why I'm here.
Samuel, you will not be disgraced.
For Dimitri Doshiro was actually Cameron Kitzman's character, and I decided to fill in that role. I think based off of a few reasons. One, I can't think of anybody else I could think of who would play the role of Dimitri Doshiro and do it justice, at least off the top of my head. And since I couldn't, believe me, if I still had Cameron Kitzman's contact information, and if he still lived around town, I would have asked him if he wanted to do it. He could have done it better justice, and I could have, but I did my best. So I tried to make Dimitri as close to what Kitzman's inspirations were as close as possible, which a lot of the inspirations came from various Naruto characters. In particular with the little sand vials, that's where Gaara comes into play. But like I tried to like add in like a little bit of more because basically he's the ninja from a dojo in the desert. So I tried to play off of that, and that worked out pretty well. And in terms of his fighting style, I tried to make it as close to. I got a little bit of inspired by Lars Alexandersson's fighting style from the Tekken games, and I worked off of that, and that was the basis for Dimitri Doshiro. And of course, that was also the first time I ever wore a fishnet shirt, and Jivatma is a very interesting take, because Jivatma is the mysterious ghost man. Like, you know, he comes back into different vessels and what have you. And so I figured I could get away with like getting a completely different actor.
For the first movie, I was inspired by a lot of cop shows that I watched growing up, like Law and Order, Murder, She Wrote, even some fictional characters like Sherlock Holmes. For this movie, I was leaning more towards the martial art factor in my personality, like some of the moves that will be shown in the movie, like Leopard's Paw, Tiger's Claws, stuff like that. And those are actual fighting moves in martial arts, so I ain't making this shit up. And as for the accent Javalma usually slips into, it's just something I occasionally do, so again, I'm not making this up.
You know, me and Jordan knew each other for a while, and I was making this movie. He was in Return of Nunchuck Man as well, and he played the character Javatma there as well. So, you know, it basically all started with me calling up Jordan and was like, hey dude, I'm making a fucking movie and there's a character that I want you to play. I think you could do it. And Jordan was like, fuck yeah, let's do it. And then fast forward to now, I asked him to do it again. He was like, yeah, I could do that. This time with more Kempo karate training, which is pretty boss. And Jivanma was actually played by a guy I used to know through high school. And for his protection, I'm not going to mention his full name. His character, like basically, Jivatma's character was the equivalent of a ghost man that keeps coming back into different vessels. And his first three forms, okay, maybe except for his third form to a degree, like he's basically the villain equivalent of Nunchuck Man, who, of course, Nunchuck Man, as you know, is incompetent and always gets the shit kicked out of him. Whereas Jivatma is like that, only he's a villain and he gets the shit kicked out of him by Nunchuck Man. So he was like the Dan Hibiki of the high school series until this movie, where Jivatma comes back as the gentleman by the name of Daniel Vanderwall, and at that point, you know, he means fucking business now, because you have to remember he took over like just typical shitty thugs who were like probably whacked out and whatever, whereas Daniel Vanderwall's a family man and a pastry chef, and he's a big guy, so it's just like he could probably like fucking choke slam you on the concrete with no fucking problem. But of course, you know, being as how he's a ghost man and he reincarnates, he's not gonna have like memories. It's kind of like hitting the reset button every single time. But he does eventually get Vanderwall's memories back when he sees a bunch of kids playing, and then he remembers that his wife was missing, and yeah, that's basically the basis for Jivatma. So Jivatma got a significant overhaul in that regard too, but that one was easier to work with.
Essentially, I'm just a 6-year-old boy in a 26-year-old body because I got a mental disease that I won't get into that somewhat stunted my mental growth, so I'm basically a man-child at this point, but I still have a heightened amount of intelligence to keep me somewhat afloat. As for hobbies, I like to play video games, ever since I was small. I'm also into Yu-Gi-Oh!, which is a trading card strategy game, which is obviously relegated to tabletop if you're playing the actual card game. But there are some video game installments, so do it with that information as you will. I'm also into the martial arts, as I stated before, when I was discussing my interpretation of Jivatma. So far, I don't have that much in terms of experience because I had a nasty habit of not practicing much outside the dojo, but that's a story for another time. But I do like to gather information about different things here and there that spark my interest, like, well, Japanese mythology and more. And I also like to bake. Yeah, I'm a guy who likes to bake. You got a problem with that? Take it up with my face, or take it up with one of these guys.
Of course! Why not reincarnate one villain when I could just reincarnate two?
And you will receive another 500,000 to close.
Mass Nightmare compared to the high school films, compared to Project Apocalypse, it's a drastic fucking change. Whereas Mass Nightmare from the high school films was basically this fucking baggy clothed, like, you know, angsty teen with a hockey mask, and which, you know, works in that sense because Albert Goodman was 17 when he got shot and killed by the police after he went on a murderous rampage. But like, I felt like that character trait that I portrayed as Mass Nightmare in the high school films was absolutely like dull, in my opinion. So I decided to like completely give him a new overhaul and decided to make him like have Albert Goodman Mass Nightmare be like hugely into Japanese culture. He loves fucking sake. He'll get drunk off of it, and just respect the way of the samurai. Whereas Albert Goodman Mass Nightmare in the fucking high school films was just this angsty teen in a hockey mask who literally used a rusty scythe blade duct taped to a bamboo stick. And I'm not fucking joking when I say that. That was literally Mass Nightmare's weapon. Which, again, it works in that aspect, but I also felt it was dull. So it was kind of a... I looked at that character and I was like, yeah, I think it's about time to make him more interesting. And I thought it worked out the way it did, so... huge difference, for sure.
Well, I think of Mass Nightmare as, you know, just a criminal mastermind. Just, you know, just behind everything from the tournament. Like, just trying to do, like, just stop at nothing to go out of his way to kill anything.
Mass Nightmare did get a dramatic overhaul compared from, like, his the high school films to this movie. Whereas, instead of, Mass Nightmare looking like wearing raggedy ass like t-shirt and baggy pants and shit, looking like a thug in a fucking hockey mask, I was like, you know, I want to make him a bit more dignified, I wanted to make him look a bit more dignified and actually give him a personality and actually give him like a bit of flair. And that's where I came up with this idea for the Albert Goodman Mass Nightmare, to where he was a kid in high school, he loved Japanese culture, which is why he wore the hakama and the fucking kendo robe, and, you know, and always respected the way of the samurai, and that's what I did. And of course, of course, his fighting style is heavily inspired by Geese Howard's interpretation of the Hakyoko Seiken. And in terms of how he talks, I got a bit inspired by, this is an interesting one, I got inspired by particularly two Japanese voice actors, Norio Wakamoto and fucking, I can't remember this dude's name, but he voiced Nobunaga Oda in the Samurai Warriors game. So I like blended the two together as best I could, and there's probably a hint of George Nakata in there, so...
Thanks to my time with Masked Nightmare, my skills have become inhuman.
Me and Ryan knew each other from work. We both worked in kitchens, and we stayed in touch with one another. For me, I felt like Ryan was a perfect fit for Adam because, you know, Adam has always been like the calm and collective, like, you know, strategic pirate. and which again, Adam is also Cameron Kitzman's character, who only appeared in the final episode of the Nunchuck Man like high school films.
Can I help you? You're a Nunchuck fan, right? Yeah, sure. Who are you?
Who wants to know?
And this is your secret lair? You can say that. You guys' secret lair is before. Secret, right? But this is secret. I just walked right in.
And the door should have been closed.
Exactly. See, you know what he's talking about.
So I didn't really have a whole lot to work with Adam, so I basically gave Ryan the character structure and I had him like build it from there.
You told me he was going to be kind of a tactician character, and you gave me a bit of a direction on what you wanted to go with it. From there, I kind of just pulled from a lot of my experience with various video game characters, anime characters. I always kind of had the Dark Tower in mind when I was designing the character, because I always really liked that look. Like the new Idris Elba, as he's going into making the actual movie for it, looks perfect. That's what I was kind of going for. Obviously, I didn't have the funds to buy $100 leather jackets and holsters and all this stuff, but I thought that we pulled together very well. I wanted to pull a little bit from his past business experience of the character for being the ex-mayor. I thought he should have that kind of professional edge to it, so that's where the tie and the shirt came in. But he was still a pirate, which is why I had the combat boots, and I tried to keep it a little grungier to some regards, but still keeping that nice appearance going at the same time.
For me, Ryan was a good pick because, I mean, for one thing, he's a huge fan of the anime One Piece, and you know, I was like, well, I think Ryan can write a pretty good fucking pirate based off of that knowledge. And
well, I'm pushing 30. I've spent the last 9-10 years as a chef. I'm currently in between positions in my career with that. I've decided that I no longer want to do that. It's just long, exhausting work. It doesn't give me the opportunities that I want to get my goals done in life. So I'm pulling back. I'm restarting school right now. So I'm just in this huge transitionary phase, and it's a giant mess. I'm getting through it, but I'm ready for it to just relax a little bit again. I've done a little bit of acting experience years ago. It's been a long time since I've done it. That was more my high school days that I was doing that. A couple of plays during school as minor characters. I actually played a communist supervillain in a play. Got that role based on just saying, "This is a Russian accent." That was all he wanted me to do, and he gave me the role on the spot. It was super over the top. It was designed to be like a propaganda film from the Cold War, so I was playing a super stereotypical Russian. It was a lot of fun. And then I met you, Cannon, through The Roost, through my time there, and we just kind of stayed in touch. And you approached me to do this, and here I am.
And as for Adam's character, between Ryan's versus Cameron's, honestly, that I didn't have much to work with on Cameron's Adam, but I think Cameron's Adam originally went against Mass Nightmare ultimately at some point. But it was but so I didn't know how to incorporate that. I didn't know how to incorporate that well necessarily. So I just decided to have him like side with Mass Nightmare still, because both interpretations of Adam from Cameron and Ryan, they were both the mayor, and it's basically like it's basically Batman. Like Bruce Wayne is like, you know, billionaire playboy by day, and by night he's the vengeful superhero at night who dresses up like a bat. It's kind of like that, you know what I mean? So it's just like, you know, he's mayor for one day, giving a speech and shit. Once he's like done, he'll leave, put on his fucking overcoat and hat, and just fucking steal and just fucking pirate shit.
I thought we made good use of the filming sessions. I thought that they went very quickly. I've worked on a couple other movie projects in the past with some other people, and the filming sessions were just nowhere near as organized or as quickly moving as these were.
I always thought that Cameron had that character on lock because he had the cackle down, he had the personality switch on the fucking fly down, and I was like, I don't know anybody else who could do it. And Taylor volunteered to try, and I had no idea what Taylor was gonna do with this character.
I had like a weird baby between Gary Busey and Jim Carrey was the character, because I just pictured Jim Carrey's crazy, like the way he talks and his crazy excitement with Gary Busey's terrifying face and teeth. And unfortunately I don't have the scary teeth, but Gary Busey is a total nut job, and it seemed appropriate that he would be the basis for Dude, and Jim Carrey as Guy. That's kind of where I was going at with that.
He surprised the hell out of me, and he showed that he can play a wonderful split personality psychotic motherfucker like a fucking dream. And the personality switches are like more subtle, which I felt was actually a little better in some regards, because it's just like you couldn't tell who it is. Is it Guy or is it Dude? You would never know. I mean, the only way you could tell if it was Guy is if he like cackles and he goes blood, death, murder, that kind of shit.
Yes! Death! Blood! Chaos! Murder!
I got there. Yeah, you guys are still out of class.
As you command, Master. Finally, blood will be spilled. And it just sounded fun to be like, what's a totally schizophrenic murderer? Like, how would they just laugh? And so I came up with Crypt Keeper, and then did it that one day, and then, you know, Matt's insistent directorial pushes to be like, no, I want you to laugh like a crazy animal every time. So that just kept going from there.
Whereas Dude is more calm and collective, but he's still just as much of a fucked up psychopath. So it's just like, so either or, whatever personality you're dealing with, you're still gonna get a fork in the throat. So there's that to take into consideration. And I'm glad Taylor did this character justice.
I'm a father, I'm a lover, I'm not a handyman, I can't work on cars, I'm not good at anything like that. I've been shocked a lot of times in my life. I enjoy food, I cut my fingers a lot, I like walking, I buy shoes like twice a year, freelance illustrator, professional cook, professional badass, like guns, like women, like the woods, not crazy, sexy. A lot of people describe me as sexy, sexual.
Yeah, as for the weaponry, Guy and Dude originally used a staff, which we just took a broom handle, and I was originally just gonna do that, but after thinking about it, I was like, no, I think Guy and Dude should have something a bit more like, well, I can't think of a good term for it, but anyway, that's where the collapsible bow staff comes in, and which is basically the nightstick's older distant cousin, and you could really fuck someone's day up with that thing.
I always had a great time because I got to play a totally insane character, and I got to wear just a ripped up shirt, and I had my like weird long hair, and I got to cackle and scream and act crazy, and basically I just got to let my freak flag fly on camera for a little bit and just act like the total weirdo that I probably in my head am at all times, but I can't really do it, so it was therapeutic for me. That's how it felt.
Taylor's depiction of Guy and Dude versus Cameron's, there isn't too much of a difference. The only difference is subtlety. Like, whereas Cameron's version of Guy and Dude, his was more obvious which one it was, whereas Taylor's is a bit more subtle, and you couldn't tell which one was which, and that's one of the only major differences. And I mean, otherwise, that's really the only difference between that and itself.
You son of a bitch!
I mean, I knew Corbin from work at Hank's Charcuterie, and he's a good kid, very wild. Like, he's got a huge wild side to him. And he was talking about like shooting shotguns at the range the other day. And as I got to work, I was thinking, now who the fuck would be I was thinking out loud to myself, who would be a good like gunslinging mercenary who can dual-wield pistols, have a syringe pistol, a shotgun, and is a smoker? Corbin fit that bill like nobody's business, and I'm almost inclined to say that he might be the most popular character in the movie, based on the polls I've seen so far.
While I was like reading over the script and everything, I just kept hearing everything and kind of, you know, Clint Eastwood's like voice in Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, and I just really like that low-down kind of aggressive Western style, and I thought it would be pretty cool to portray Gunslinger in that sort of light. Even though he's a kung fu character, I figured, you know, with a Western voice and a Western sort of attitude, I figured his character would shine through.
So I wanted to give Corbin like the gunslinging, like mercenary look, which Gunslinger, I should mention, is also Cameron Kitzman's character. And in the high school films, it was originally just Cameron in a leather jacket, and that's it. And to that, I was like, you know, I want to give this gunslinger like a more mercenary, like soldier type of look, and that's where the tactical vest, the shoulder pads, the full gloves, and the holsters and the boots come in. And suffice to say, this was the most fucking dangerous costume I came up with for Corbin, because holy shit, because yeah, Corbin looked like. Taylor wasn't exaggerating when he said it. Corbin really did look like a fucking school shooter.
So we're in North Lawrence, up north of the train tracks, and we have two cops roll up on us, and they come up and ask what we're doing, and we said, you know, filming and moving and everything like that.
So at that point, we'd been in the woods for probably about an hour or so. It all kind of started, there was a grand ambition for the scene that from the very beginning sounded really shady, where Matt wanted to get lighter fluid and burn like a fake body or a pile of stuff that looked like a body in the woods, which already sounded totally shady.
When I tried to come up with a fight scene, for Guy and Dude versus Gunslinger, I was talking with Corbin about it, going over it with him, and Corbin notices that there's a part where originally Gunslinger was gonna take lighter fluid, pour it on Guy and Dude, and throw his cigarette or a match on him or something and just set him ablaze, just incinerate him. And I was like, and that edit would have been simple, because all we would have had to do is just have Corbin like pretend he's pouring lighter fluid and throw a lit match like on the ground or something and then add a fire effect. But Corbin insisted, well, I'm pretty sure this was his idea, because this is something Corbin would come up with, I'm sure. So Corbin says, well, you know, there's a place that we blew up a TV at, so we could like literally set something on fire. And I'm like, and at the time I was very skeptical. I was like, oh, but I was like, all right, well, we'll give it a shot. I mean, you know, if you blew up a TV at that particular spot, you know, then all right, we can get away with it. So, you know, Taylor and Corbin come over. We talk about the fight scene and how it's all going to work and what have you. And I think a couple of Corbin's friends too came over, and I think they just spectated the whole time, which is totally fine. I like having an audience during like live production.
So we go to the gas station. Corbin's dressed like a school shooter. Matt doesn't have his ID, and I'm like wearing ripped up clothes, like greasy, looking really sleazy.
And so we park over there, and Corbin was like, hey, I need a pack of smokes, and we need lighter fluid too. And Taylor was like, I'm not fucking going in there. I got ripped up clothes and shit, and you look like a fucking school shooter. So it was up to me to like be all like, all right, I can fucking go in there and get that shit. So I go in there, everything's all hunky-dory. And then as he told me, as he got the stuff, he told me the price. I looked through my pocket and I completely forgot my fucking credit card, my wallet entirely. And to make matters worse, he asked me for my ID, which social anxiety just skyrocketed at that point. I was like, oh, fuck me dead. And then I just was like, all right, I'll be right back. And then I just stormed out. I go back into the car and I'm like, Taylor, I'm sorry, buddy, but I completely forgot my credit card and my ID. You're gonna have to go in and get that shit. And
I end up having to go in and buy lighter fluid. And like, as soon as I put the lighter fluid on the table, I'm just like, dude, I'm making a movie. Like, I swear don't call the police as soon as I leave. Finally get the lighter fluid. Everything's kind of going according to plan. We drive out there, fight, beat each other up for hours.
we get to the spot and Corbin like says, all right, we're going in there, which is like this forested area like by the river, between the river and the train tracks. And I'm just like, oh, Corbin, we're gonna start a fucking forest fire. And I should mention that the battle arena itself is completely fucking dangerous.
The area that the first part of the first scene where we were standing and like I was coming in and he was coming this way and there was basically like a 30-foot drop of jagged rocks on one side with like this much space, and on the other space like another 25-foot drop with like water and rocks. And I was like, oh my god, dude, like I know Corbin's kind of a wild dude, like I'm a little crazy sometimes too. If we get a little too feisty over here, like this is gonna be like the worst way to say I died. It was like, well, this cat was filming the very first scene of a kung fu movie with his friends, got knocked off and just like died a slow, awful death from like blunt force trauma. That, I was like, that's gonna suck.
Well, live fast, die young, I guess. That's his motto. But so we do the fight scene, everything goes according to plan, we start to wrap it up.
And just like literally, I mean, I'm almost thankful they showed up at that time, because right when we were about done with our final fight scene and we're going to do the burning the pile of shit in the woods scene, which is super illegal, two cops just show up out of nowhere and they don't ask us if our guns are real, they don't ask for our IDs or anything.
They like looked over our equipment and everything like that. We had a bunch of, you know, orange tip like airsoft guns and just kind of cheap movie props and things like that. But they came up and kind of jostled us a little bit. They were real nice, super polite guys, but they just weren't expecting people to be filming a kung fu movie up north of the train tracks near the river. So.
And at that point, I about shat fucking bricks, and it's like so. We look over and, you know, Corbin immediately drops his gun and he's like, officer, these are fake. They're not real. And the cops were all like, oh yeah, we know. We know you guys are, we can tell that you guys are like filming a movie here.
We're out there in the woods, like dirty, blood, just like exasperated. They're like, we could hear you boys from a mile away screaming. Like, that's why we just came out here, you know, we're harassing vagrants, and you know, a lot of people steal bikes and ditch them out here, so we're just kind of doing our patrol, but we can hear you guys screaming, just checking what's going on. We're like, oh, you know, officers filming a movie or whatever, and
I don't know, they didn't ticket us or anything.
Like, they secretly off to the side ended up watching, because at some point, you know, we're asking each other, like, oh, should we do that line again or whatever, and we hear a cop just go like, well, I think you could probably do that line a little bit better. And I'm like, oh shit, we gotta get out of here. We gotta end this.
At this point, I did not want to take any fucking chances, and I was like telling Corbin as quietly as possible, and I was like, Corbin, we can't fucking do this shit. Let's just forget the setting on fire shit, and let's just have you smoke your cigarette, take the coordinates, and get out. We can't take a risk.
And it was like right before we started burning stuff. It was, if they had come 10 seconds later, we would have probably all gone to jail. But since we didn't end up burning anything, they just thought a bunch of weirdos in the woods, and they didn't bother us really at all, which is weird. I almost wish they had, because it's like, damn, cops, like, ask us something, like, what are we doing out here? Like, you guys are cool, you guys are fine. It's like, all right, man. Wouldn't be the first question I'd ask when I was a cop. I would just walk away from that. But that was great. LPD, man, kill it.
Probably starting a forest fire, which probably would be a prison sentence now that I think about it. But beyond that, so it was like, oh man, I gotta do something about this because there is no way we could get away with it. So I had to make absolutely sure to let everyone know that the guns are not real, they're plastic, don't call the cops, all that shit. And it was just, oh man, like it was just like we were playing it with fire, and I can only imagine like how Corbin was feeling as he was in this costume the entire time. But hey, again, it all worked out, so you know that's the ultimate name of the game.
Dude, roller coaster. It's insane, man. Like, had a great time filming, and I like switched up my dialogue a lot. I'm not very good at following a script, so I just kind of went with it in a way that I thought would be fitting for Gunslinger, and Matt was kind enough to just kind of let me run off with that character and portray him as, I don't know, I saw fit. Well, I make food for a living. Work at 715, making pasta. I don't know, skating and just having a good time, I guess. I don't like to overcomplicate shit. Good times are good times.
Corbin's version of Gunslinger and Cameron's version of Gunslinger. Cameron's version of Gunslinger, I felt like still had that mercenary edge, but isn't as much of a greedy motherfucker as Corbin's version of Gunslinger. But ultimately, both of them still had that give me something to shoot attitude behind them. The only difference is that one is a greedy motherfucker and the other one isn't. Because by the end of the day, Corbin's Gunslinger loves a good paycheck, and Cameron's Gunslinger loves shooting at shit, even if it is a police helicopter out of left field for no reason other than fuck you, that's why.
Well, his resolve is strong, and that's what's the most important.
I've known Uncle Matt since I was a baby, so he's a family friend, and Uncle Matt is, he's a very, very funny and very humble fella.
I am a well-seasoned actor. I've played many parts, most notably as the strongest man in the world, and that's my biggest role. And right now I'm just playing Grandpa.
And I mean, basically when you're watching this movie and as he's playing this character, I mean, it's basically Uncle Matt in a torn up robe. But you know what? That was perfectly fine.
I'm kind of an old man myself, so the inspiration was just me. But no, Matt gave me a lot of good ideas, and what he wanted, and I thought about people that I knew, and you know, I tried to be like the wise old man rather than the grumpy old man, but you know, just said.
But I felt Uncle Matt was a good pick because he fits the bill for like old fella, and at the time of this new movie, Nunchuck Man was technically 17 or 18. So I felt like it would have made sense to pick somebody who was like in their 50s or 40s, and Uncle Matt ultimately fit the bill. So that was the basis for him, and I ironically ended up teaching him what I knew about Jeet Kune Do, even though he was playing the master of the movie. So I was like, all right, so Uncle Matt, all you gotta do is just go like this. That's Bruce Lee's stance, like that, and he does his best, and it's just so funny that I ended up teaching him off screen, and then on screen he's teaching me, and it's just like, it's just wonderful. And we did it all at his house, and his backyard was perfect for the training spot, and it was just wonderful. Finally putting my Uncle Matt in a movie, and my family loved it, and it's just, well, words can't describe it really. I'm just glad I put him in.
Just me. Been hanging out with Matt since he was a kid. Actually, before he was born. I knew him when he was born. I went and saw him at the hospital, and been around him all my life. He's a good kid. I still think of him as a kid, although he's kind of a man. But he's always going to be a kid to me. And but he's a good kid. And hung out with his mom and Charlotte, and we'd act up, and they'd roll their eyes at us. And we tried not to be, get out of control, but what can you do? But just been hanging out. It was fun. We had a good time, and Matt was very patient with me because I'm not real good with the lines, and Jordan helped a lot too, so everything worked out. But we had a lot of fun.
Tell us a bit about yourself, Matt Kyle.
Well, I was a circus performer for a long, long time. I was a human cannonball. Probably remember me there. It was one of the only jobs I was hired and fired the same day. But now that circus performer's over, Ringling Brothers is no longer going on. I had to find something else, and this is where I landed.
You understand that was a serious question, right?
Oh, a serious question. Oh.